Hey guys, my name is Gabby, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my October wrap up. It's already the end of October. Happy Halloween! Well, look at this shirt. If you can't read it, it says, "Books make me happy, you not so much." Ugh, is that not me? In the month of October, I read a total of 9 books, which I'm kind of happy about, but at the same time I feel like I could have read more. I kind of hit a reading slumpish thing at the end of the month. Like, I only read 1 book within 10 days, which is pretty not normal for me, so I don't know how I feel about it. I read a lot at the beginning of the month, and then I started slacking towards the end of the month, and I only read like 2 books in the last half of the month, but whatevs, it is what it is. Let's just jump right into my wrap up. The first book that I read this month was Most of All You by Mia Sheridan, and I wanted to say a huge thank you to Forever Romance Books for sending me a copy of this book. This is a new adult romance that follows Crystal and Gabriel. Gabriel is sensitive to touch because he was kidnapped when he was a little boy, and so he has this fear of like touching people, and so he goes to this strip club where he meets Crystal, who's one of the strippers, and she kind of has like daddy issues, and she's just had a really hard time trusting men in her life, and so he hires her to like touch him. That sounds weird, but just like touching his like chest or shoulders, like is afraid to like be touched. This romance kind of just screams insta-love, unfortunately. I mean, for her, I kind of understand maybe her falling for Gabriel right away because she's never been able to trust any men, and like he's so nice right off the bat, and like I could see her falling for him right away, but him falling for her doesn't really make as much sense in my head. It just happens really quickly, and as far as romances go, this one doesn't really bring anything new to the table that you haven't read like a million times. You know, it's like it's this broken girl and this broken boy coming together, and this book deals with a lot of really dark content, like sexual abuse and rape and drugs and just all kinds of dark content. This one ended up being just okay to me. It's nothing that's like gonna like stand out in the romance genre for me. I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. The second book I read this month, There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. But this is one of my most anticipated books of the year. I've been waiting for this book for years because it's a young adult horror novel written by Stephanie Perkins, but it's kind of like the horror movie Scream. This one ended up being slightly disappointing for me for a couple of reasons, but I wanted to mention some of the things that I really liked about the book, which is the diversity. I thought was really important. There's a transgender character. Also, the first scenes with the killer were actually like really creepy, like kind of freaked me out, like especially the scene in the locker room. Like, I'm still thinking about it, and it was done so well, like the suspense in that scene. So like the first couple scenes with the serial killer were actually really good and everything I wanted from this book, and I like the fact that it's a really quick read. You can get through this in one day. I got through it in one day. But for the things I didn't like, number 1 being the freaking romance. This unfortunately ended up being more of a romance than a horror novel, which is not really what I wanted, and the romance is so cliche and cheesy. It's just like Stephanie Perkins' other like Anne and the French Kiss books in that way. Like, I didn't really like the romance, didn't care about it. The other thing is that we find out who the killer is like halfway through the book, which just kind of killed the excitement of trying to figure out who it is. Like, it's revealed halfway through, and so our main character has this like dark secret that she doesn't want anyone to find out about from her past, and it's like mentioned throughout the entire book, and then when you finally find out what it is, it's like the most ridiculous thing. Like, who, like, what? I just think the ending was really anticlimactic, and the whole reason why this serial killer picked these specific teens to kill was the dumbest reason I've ever heard. Like, they couldn't come up with anything better. I feel like this story did have a lot of potential, and it just got wasted. So I ended up giving this one 2.5 out of 5 stars. The third book I read this month was A Stranger in the House by SHARI LAPENA. This is an adult thriller about a man named Tom who comes home and he finds out his wife is missing. She left her purse and her cell phone at the house, and he has like no idea where she went or where she could be, and then they find her in this like bad neighborhood that's close to their house with the car still running. She was in like an accident. She got her head hit, and now she like doesn't remember anything about leaving the house or why she did it. Is definitely a page turner, but I still don't think it was as good as her first book, The Couple Next Door. And I don't really like how like the main message in this book is about these 2 women lusting over the same man who ends up being a freaking coward. Like, he's not even a good guy, and it's like they're both lusting over him as if he's like their only option. And I just didn't really love that about this book, but I will admit it, the mystery aspect of it was a total page turner, and if that's what you're in for, then I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. It was alright. The fourth book I read this month was The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. It is a a freaking classic in my opinion, but it's my first time reading it ever. So follows this FBI agent in training named Clarice Starling. She's tracking down this killer named Buffalo Bill who's like killing all these women, and in order to find him she uses the help of Hannibal Lecter, who's this psychologist slash cannibal that's in the mental asylum. Hannibal Lecter is easily one of the most smartest, calculated, disgusting, but interesting characters I think I've ever read about. He's the main reason why I love this novel, and he's just fascinating as a character because he's so freaking smart, you know, because he's a psychologist, but at the same time he's so creepy because he's a freaking cannibal, like he's eating people, and just the way he thinks is just so unique and interesting. I will admit that some parts of this book do get a little bit slow. That is why I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 instead of 5 out of 5, but I did really enjoy this book, and I love Hannibal Lecter as a character. He's like one of my new favorite fictional characters. So the 5th book I read this month is Beartown by Frederick Bachman, a story that takes place in a small town in Sweden where hockey is like their entire lives. Like it revolves around this little hockey team in the town, and this town is like all about hockey. It's like all they care about. This town has a ton of terrible secrets. It's torn apart over this terrible tragic event that happens. I wasn't expecting this book to have as many amazing messages about feminism as it did. You know, for a book about hockey, I just wasn't expecting it to be such a feminist, positive book. The quotes just talking about how girls can't even like hockey in the beginning, you know, because they're saying if you like the game then you're a lesbian, but if you like the players then you're a slut. Like there's no way to win in any situation for a girl to like hockey. Like she's either labeled immediately as a lesbian or a slut, and it's just like, why can't girls just like hockey, you know? And I related to this a lot because I love hockey too, and so I definitely related to those quotes about feminism and hockey and all that. I also really love the quotes about motherhood and anxiety and psychology, and this book was just very thought-provoking. I also love Peter and Kira's relationship because Kira is this badass lawyer and Peter is the hockey coach, and so love Kira's like inner dialogue about how she always feels like she can't be the best mom and the best lawyer. Like she always feels like she's constantly torn between her job and her kid. But this book is just really gorgeously written, and it's very thought-provoking, and I think that it starts a really important discussion about feminism, especially in the sports world. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was From This Moment by Melanie Hansen. This is a new adult romance that follows this girl named Hannah, and she's married to this doctor named Drew, and he passes away at the age of 34 from a heart attack, and he leaves her with their 5-year-old daughter Abby to raise on her own. Drew has a twin brother named Wes who's also a doctor, and he's been away in Africa on this like doctor mission thing in Africa for the last couple years, and so he comes back home after Drew dies and they start to bond and become closer. Wes is like one of my favorite characters of all time. Like I loved him so much in this book. Sometimes stories that revolve around a tragedy are kind of either like hit or miss for me, you know, because I'm like, oh, the author's just trying to make you cry, but like in this case, like holy shit, I was like crying so hard. Like the way it starts is with her seeing Wes again, and it's like it's so hard for her to see him because Drew was his identical brother, and like they look so much alike. I can't even imagine what that's like to feel like you're seeing your husband again after he's died. For their 5-year-old daughter to like see Wes and think that he looks exactly like her dad, and that must be so difficult for her, you know? There was a surprising amount of like plot twists and dramatic things that kept the story moving in this, which I really appreciated. I ended up knocking a star off of this because I do think the ending got a little bit too repetitive and dramatic with their need to be together and not being able to because of stupid reasons. I don't know, I was just like, come on, like let's just get to it, you know? So I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars, but I definitely think it's one of my new favorite romance novels, and this is the first book I've read from this author, so I'm definitely going to be checking out other books from this author soon. The 7th book I read this month was Dirty Mind by HORVAT. This is a male-male romance that follows this 30-year-old creative writing professor named Alex and his 18-year-old student named Christian. Christian isn't like his student, but he's like a student. So this isn't like technically a student-teacher romance because he's not his current student, you know what I mean? This book takes place in Germany, which I think is super cool. Unfortunately, this book is kind of like one of those annoying romance novels where everybody else knows that the two need to end up together and the two main characters authors just can't seem to figure it out for like the length of the entire novel. And so it was just kind of frustrating because Alex is like ridiculously insecure because he thinks he's like way too old for Christian, and Christian is just like waiting around the whole book for Alex to make a move, and it's just like it takes forever for anything to happen, and I just got kind of bored with the story after a while. And this one didn't have the same emotional impact as her first story, The Layover, that I read earlier this year, and I was a really huge fan of that one. And this one just didn't really have the same emotional punch as The Layover did, so I didn't enjoy this one as much, but I still ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I really do love her writing, and I definitely will be checking out all of her future books. The 8th book I read this month was Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. This is a young adult contemporary novel about these 3 adopted siblings. They come together and they all have their own individual unique stories, and so Grace is one of our main characters, and she has a baby of her own at the age of 16, and she puts it up for adoption, which leads to this whole discussion about how she was adopted and she has 2 other siblings out there that she didn't know about before this. And so it puts her on the hunt to like find her siblings and find her birth family. And so then we get Maya, who is a 14-year-old girl who's a lesbian, and her parents are kind of going through a divorce, and it's kind of like an ugly time in her house. Also follows her brother, their brother, named Joaquin, who's 17, and he's a Mexican, and he's been in and out of the foster care system for like his entire life. Like he's never really found his family. The 3 of them all come together, and it's just a really moving and sensitive story about adoption and the process of adoption and what it means to like find your family. Towards the end, like this story did get a little bit repetitive with the like insecurity with all the 3 main characters, and it's like I completely understand why. After a while it just got very repetitive as a reader, you know, especially Joaquin. He constantly feels like he's undeserving of love, and like he's like he can't find his place and he's not good enough for anyone, and like I get why he thinks that, but at the same time, like as a reader, my enjoyment of this novel, it just got very repetitive. Just didn't really care about any of the romantic relationships with Joaquin and his girlfriend Birdie, and then Maya and her girlfriend Claire. I just didn't really like care about any of their relationships. The romance was just happening, but I didn't care about it. But yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read this month was Ghostwriter by Alessandra Torre, and I read this book because Alessandra Torre is one of my favorite romance authors. I've read a couple of her books, and this is her first like suspense novel. It's a thriller and it's not romance at all. This is a suspense novel about this author who has all these secrets, and she's writing her very last story because she found out something very dramatic, and so she's writing the story that's gonna like finish her career, and it's like her last story that she's been wanting to tell for years. Unfortunately, this book is boring as fucking shit. The entire book is just scenes of her writing the book and like little glimpses about, you know, because like she used to have this husband and this daughter, and you don't know what happened with them, so like the whole book you're trying to figure out like what happened with them, and so she's basically writing like the story of her life. So boring. Like literally every scene of this book is like different scenes of her writing the book and struggling to write the book and struggling to relive the memories that are so fucking terrible, but you don't know what they are until like the last couple chapters of the book. Like it takes forever. Not to mention that our main character, Helena, is like the most bitter bitch I've ever read about in a book. To everyone, to her mom, to her husband, to her kid, to her agent, to like anyone in this book. She's just a fucking bitch all the time, like constantly, like in constant bitch mode all the time. She was pissing me off. Can you not? I also didn't really like how there was like these random chapters from other characters' point of views, like her agent for one, her agent Kate. She gets her own chapters just talking about, oh my god, Helena's like in a bad mood today, and it was just like so pointless, and like they could be scrapped and this book wouldn't be any different, you know. So I ended up giving this one 2 stars, and the only reason why I didn't give it 1 star is because the ending was unpredictable. The end was decent, even though I don't think it was worth all the trouble of reading through this whole book for the ending. The ending was a bit surprising, so I'll give it that. But other than that, like, my god. Ugh. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of October. I feel like I bitched about a lot of these books, so I feel like I had more like negative reading experiences this month than positive ones. I mean, I think my favorite book of the month by far was From This Moment, and I really did love Beartown and Silence of the Lambs, Far From the Tree, but at the same time, like, I didn't read anything this month that like was like dropped me to the floor. Easy 5 out of 5, like holy shit, favorite new book ever, you know? So I'm kind of disappointed by that, and I didn't read as many thrillers as I really wanted to. Also, I wanted to mention that now I'm an official Page Habit ambassador. So if you don't know what Page Habit is, it's this monthly subscription box where you get a new release and the author annotates the book. The author annotates the book with a bunch of post-it notes, so you get like personal annotations from the author, which I think is super freaking cool. And they also give you this like little short story that is only sent through Page Habit. It comes with all these like little bookish goodies and stuff. If you do want to sign up for Page Habit, you can use the link that I'm gonna put in the description of this video, and then if you use the code Gabby, then you get either $5 off your first order or free shipping on your first order. So I think that's super lit, and the boxes are definitely worth it. Like, they're so cool. Like, the annotations from the author just make the reading experience like so much more personal and interesting. So definitely, I'll put the link in the description so you can check that out if that's something you're interested in. How many books did you guys read this month? What was your favorite book you read this month? What was your least favorite book you read this month? Leave it in the comments and we can talk about it. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys next time. And this book takes place in Germany. Whoa, fuck that up. Clarice Starling. Clarice?